Good morning and welcome back to CLIC Connect. Season 10 is almost a wrap. This is episode 23, and we invited back Daniel Lesser, President, CEO, founder, LW Hospitality Advisors. And we have him back for a couple of reasons. One, he makes us smarter every time he's here. Two, he brings great information. So we're going to be talking about hotels, travel, tourism, financial markets. One of our favorite cities between Daniel and myself, San Francisco, and hopefully we'll blow apart some of the myths that you're hearing about the city because it is coming back. Okay, let's welcome to the show Daniel Lesser. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Craig. How are you?
Good. So you're in the Valley of the Sun. You're fresh off the stage at an event. You brought us some great information today, which I knew you would, and thank you very much. You're one of our favorite guests on CLIC Connect.
Thank you. Thank you. Your opening comments were very flattering. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. And one thing I do want to close the show on, and I didn't mention, I want to talk about LARC because I think you guys are going to get really, really busy with that. So, Daniel, you know, it's been an interesting 5+ months. You know, I read an article the other day that it looks like the U.S. is going to lose about $26.5 billion in travel dollars, which, you know, focuses, you know, on travel, tourism, hospitality, car rentals, sporting events, concerts, everything you could think of. You know, where are we going? What are you thinking about this? I'm kind of puckering at this moment.
Listen, at the end of the day, the fact is nobody knows. You, me, nobody knows, right? There's a lot of angst going on out there, right? I heard a term recently, transitory uncertainty. Think about that, but that's a ridiculous phrase. Okay, transitory uncertainty, right? We live in an uncertain world, and yes, you know, the uncertainty is definitely heightened during this recent past, right? But we get through it all, and every time we get through it all, it's always bigger and better, right? So, listen, when you invest in hotels, you really ought to be underwriting under a long-term hold, right? And what do I mean by that? You should be underwriting that if need be, you need to hold on that you can for 10 years. That does not mean that if a capital event opportunity bubbles up in year 2, 3, 4, 5, that you wouldn't take advantage of that. But because of the daily leasing and the volatility of hotel profits, it makes more sense.
I agree with you. And, you know, revenue management has changed so much. And you know, you and I have said for decades, okay, unlike your 10 or 20 story office building, okay, this is a 24-hour lease. It's a commodity that you cannot resell, okay, just like the airlines.
That's correct.
You know, so revenue management is crucial. And I think what we're going to be seeing certainly in the short term, and let's say the next 5 years out, it's going to be totally different. AI is going to come in and do so much enhancement in that particular facet of hospitality.
I couldn't agree with you more. And with that being said, it's unfortunate, and hopefully this will turn around, but the hotel industry has always lagged behind not only embracing technology, but creating it.
Yeah.
And you know, if you look back when the OTAs came around, that was during the 2008 great financial crisis, right? And hotels were hurting, and the industry thought it was the greatest thing since Swiss cheese to come around, and they embraced it wholeheartely, only to figure out later on as we came out of that downturn that, wait a second, what did we just do? We gave up control of our most precious commodity, heads and beds. Yeah. And there's been that tug of war since then, where, you know, brand.com wants direct bookings. They don't want, you know, so technology, AI, you're spot on with that. The industry needs to not only embrace it, but get creative in terms of developing it themselves. Who knows the sector better than the lodging industry? So
I agree. And,
Don't let Google develop it and have control of it. We need to have control of it.
and that's the argument we've been having since 2010. And, we signed our lives away with these contracts. And, we're going to have to take control back. We have to at some point.
It's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, I agree with you. Global travel's declined. Canadians aren't coming. They're the second largest leisure group that comes into California.
Yep.
East Coast, Northeast, certainly Florida, Hawaii, to mention a few areas within the U.S. Travel advisories being issued by countries that we've always been friendly with. Deportations of people coming here for a plethora of reasons. Not a good headline. And speaking of headlines, you were kind enough to put this slide together where, we've got we've got some stuff going on here. What do you think? What are you telling your clients to combat some of these headlines that we're seeing?
Listen, the smart money, and there's a lot of it out there, is seeking to deploy capital. If you're sitting on cash, you're losing money. And there's a tremendous amount of capital out there, debt and equity, that is looking for a home. And hotels are a very desirable asset class these days for numerous reasons. And I've been doing what I do for quite some time. I don't recall ever there being a phenomenon that exists today whereby office buildings are perceived as less desirable than hotels. I mean, that's never occurred in my career. I doubt in yours as well, Craig.
No.
And so, there's a ton of opportunity out there. You just have to be patient. You have to underwrite correctly. There's a lot of opportunity coming down the pike between debt coming due and PIP requirements. During COVID, the brands played very nicely in the sandbox.
Yep.
Vis-a-vis implementing PIPs. Those days are over with now. It has to be done. So there are a whole slew of transactions that are coming down the pike where the debt's coming due, the PIP has to be done, and the sponsor is going to be like, you know what, I'm done. Either recap this thing or sell it, but I'm done. And there's going to be a tremendous amount of transaction activity coming up. There's actually, these headlines of, there's not a lot. There's quite a bit of transaction activity going on. If you look at my quarterly sales list, last quarter there were more than 300 trades at 10 million or more. These are individual assets. So anyway.
See, I love that. And, that 10 to 25, maybe even $35 million deal that's trading. And I agree with you on everything you said. The brands were great, during the pandemic and all that. The problem that I'm seeing now with PIPs in particular, the cost factor and with tariffs and everything else, they've gotten to be astronomical. And I understand brand integrity. We all do. We all agree with it. We may not like it all the time, but we agree with it. But the other thing that people aren't talking about is skilled labor. You can't take somebody who has built, say, one-off homes or multifamily and all of a sudden expect them to perform and know what to do to keep, mitigate, a lot of the noise and dust with clients in a hotel. They've got no clue. Every state in the union has had some sort of natural disaster. Floods, tornadoes, earthquakes, fires, goes on and on. And the skilled labor that was here is either moved, to Arizona, Florida, Texas, various other states. And you look at what's going on, and let's take a look at Texas and San Francisco, okay? Austin in particular. Austin and San Francisco both have a 27% vacancy in their office space. I never would have guessed that, okay? A lot of big tech companies have pulled back and walked on a lot of leases. You've got the largest building in Texas still under construction in Austin, how would you like to be that developer right now? You know, I think there's a lot of untold issues right now. I think you've got groups out of New York that are willing to put up $1 billion to do conversion on office buildings to multifamily. I think that's going to help out with a lot of the housing issues. But you've got tract homes in Texas that can't get finished. They can't get the supplies. So, you know, where are we going with all this? Is there going to be, you know, the brand's going to soften a little bit, or are they just going to hold, you know, there's a line in the sand and this needs to happen?
Listen, you know what? At the end of the day, everybody's problem is an opportunity for somebody else, right? Yeah. And this is a phenomenon that never goes away. There are a lot of problems out there. There's no question about it. But there's also a tremendous amount of capital to restructure or acquire these assets at reduced basis levels. And candidly, any investment, whether it's a hotel or whatever, it's all about your basis in a deal.
Yeah.
And today, generally speaking, you can buy lots of real high quality assets at 65 to 75 cents on replacement cost per dollar.
Yeah.
So that's also why we're not seeing a whole lot of construction right now. Also, financing for construction, while it's out there for something that's economically feasible, there, you know, aside from select service and extended stay, you don't see a whole lot of deals penciling out. So supply is going to remain pretty in check. And there's always hotels that are coming out of the supply. You know, I want to go back to something else that you brought up twice now, and that was the $1 billion of loss in terms of, you know, inbound tourism, Canadians, what have you, right? Because that is definitely correct. But you know what? It needs to be netted out with the notion that I'm hearing that a lot of Americans are deciding to travel domestically this year instead of going overseas because of concern vis-a-vis this whole issue and how they will be treated in foreign lands. So, you know what? You can look at the glass half full or half empty, right? There's the pluses and minuses to everything. I'm not saying it's going to net out, right? But I'm also going to say that, you know, these things change rapidly. I mean, look what's happened in just the past 6 months, right? Yeah. From the inauguration of Trump to where we are today, you know, what's going on in the Middle East. I mean, who could have predicted any of this, right?
Yeah, I mean, my crystal ball's had a crack in it for decades and is still in the shop. So
I'm the first one to admit that as well.
and thank you for bringing that up because you just opened the door for me. I'm just going to ask you, you know, will U.S. residents be spending more on travel and tourism? You know, you look at Disney World and Disneyland in particular. They contribute over $68 billion in revenue. Okay, that's tax dollars. That's hotels, that's food and beverage, that's gifts, that's everything you can think of. And in Orange County, California, that's 1 out of every 20 jobs in supporting hotels, travel, tourism, and the mouse. So I think, you know, I think we're going to have the Great American Road Trip 3.0 if it's not 2.0. I've lost it. You know, there's been a couple of times where we've had everybody out on the road. You know, now, are they going to be spending more, less? I don't know, to get back to your point.
You know, I believe that Americans perceive that it's their God-given right to go on vacation, whether they can afford it or not. And they do. If they have to, you know, pay less and stay in more modest accommodations. But there's people, you know, COVID really taught the world that life is short or can be short, I should say, and enjoy it while you're here. And, you know, human connectivity. Listen, this is great, Craig, right? But it would be very different like when you and I sit down and meet the money and we do those, you know, and so human connection and the desire to explore and experience and travel and rising middle classes throughout the world. Yeah. Travel is only growing. It is not declining over the long term. And so, yes, there are going to be some short-term hiccups about where it's coming from, but globally, people want to travel and spend time with other human beings.
I think you're absolutely right about that. The only question I have on that is the younger generation. Okay, they're a fully digital generation. Okay, and these kids that I see, they're always looking down at their phone like this, and I'm not sure, but I think as the rule of thumb that yes, we want that connectivity, we want that interaction, we want that conversation. We want to look at a human across the table. We're not all like Howard Hughes and want to be locked up in a room. Okay. So I think you're right about that. But I think if you look at some of the young people now, and I can't believe this is coming out of my mouth, their people skills are lacking. But, you see a lot of, I'm a solo traveler. I have been for decades because of work. Okay. But, every time I'm somewhere new or even someplace that I've gone to regularly, San Francisco, New York, Chicago, whatever it may be, Honolulu, when I see a couple or a family together, it always puts a smile on my face because I know that they're visiting, they're on vacation. That's why I love sitting in a lobby of a hotel and watching the people coming in and check, when they're checking in and seeing the staff running around and, everybody smiles. So travel it's part of us. It's in our DNA. It's,
100%.
We're explorers. So by nature, that's something that's part of us. And I think, at some point we will be, growing again with travel. But I do think that, if you're staying in the country, go to Maine. Go someplace you haven't been. Go to Montana. Great Falls, Montana is beautiful. Maine is beautiful. Go across the northern border. A lot of people have never been in those states. And those states are hurting. Tourism is down for obvious reasons. So, go someplace different. Go get that Corvette and drive what's left of the Route 66, with the top.
Love that. There you go. You hit it.
Yeah. There's still a lot of hotels that are on major highways. It doesn't always have to be a resort. Close the trip with a resort. Okay. Hand in the rental car keys to that Corvette, get back on an airplane and go home afterwards. Or do the Harley trip, something like that. So
I would add Martha's Vineyard to your list of it's one of my favorite places. I just wanted to put that in there. You mentioned something about younger people. I don't know what you're talking about. You and I are pretty young. Don't we both dye our hair gray just for credibility purposes?
Exactly.
But it's our hair, right?
It's our hair. Yeah, exactly.
But this notion of young people being in front of if you think about it, we are all in front of screens. Look at what's going on right this moment. You and I are in front of screens, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the way the world is today. But that does not hinder travel.
No.
As a matter of fact, it spurs travel because it allows people to work and be digital nomads. That's a concept that wasn't around, that has not been around very long, right? So travel is only growing, and it's going to continue to grow. Chris Nacetta had a terrific quote. If you have my deck there, it's one of the last slides, and I think it's very relevant. He recently said, and he was spot on. It's at the very end. Yeah. Keep going all the way down.
All of them. Yeah.
He recently said, when we were going through a lot of turmoil, that he thought the turmoil was very overblown. And here we are today, and it was overblown. Yeah, keep going. No, back up a few. Keep going. Yeah, up. Oh, there you go. Right there.
There we go.
Yes. Okay. So, recently, this is April 29th, not that long ago. he saw an overreaction to Trump policies and upside potential. I agreed with him then, and I think here we are, at the end of June almost, and he was correct, right? Back during the depths of COVID, in this article, Hilton sees a golden age of travel. Can it last? If you read the bottom in yellow, I don't know if you can make that bigger, but that to me is very astute and very reflective of, over the long term, it's going to be spectacular. All the trends that were here pre-COVID are here even to a greater level, meaning people's desire to spend on experiences and do things. The other thing that is long-term very beneficial for what I call our new golden age of travel is mobility. That's what you and I have been talking about, right?
Yeah.
You have greater flexibility. People are going to have more flexibility on Mondays, Fridays, weekends. People are going to allow more remote work. The more mobile the world, the better our business. It's that simple. By the way, I'm not that smart. He's smart.
I love it. Yeah, you are that smart, my friend. The other thing that I like, and this reminds me, there was a commercial a few years ago when we were coming out of the economic or financial meltdown, where the guys got all of his salespeople in a room and go, "Hey, it's been too long since we've seen our clients. I called so-and-so and they said, oh, well, we haven't seen you in a year and we've moved on to somebody else." So he starts handing out airline tickets to all of his salespeople to get back on the road. That always struck me as being very timely, and I think it is right now as well. It's just one of those things that it's got to be part of your SOP or standard operating procedure. We've got to get out in front of our clients, our coworkers. We've got to get them into the offices at least, a few times a month, so that they still are a team and cohesive and thinking on the same page. My friend, we're coming. CMBS had a banner year last year. They did really well with their hotel loans. Where do you think we're going with interest rates and CMBS loans for the remainder of this year and maybe, through the first half of next year?
Well, I think I'm going to pass on opining about where I think interest rates are going to go, because I'm not an economist. And I am always amused that, everybody answers that question. So maybe I should too, but it's like, I don't know where interest rates are going to go. Look where the trend is, right?
Yeah.
Isn't the Fed meeting today? Has a decision come out? I don't know, but
I haven't heard. I think they are meeting today, though. Yeah.
But consensus, I believe, is that they're not going to move at all in rates. And Trump this morning was bad-mouthing Jerome Powell, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, listen, I don't think rates are going down. I also don't think they're going up dramatically. When you look at rates today, yes, they are elevated compared to where they were 36 months ago. But if you look at it compared to a long-term 40-year history, interest rates today are really right at the average of a 40-year period. So everything's relative in life. Yes, compared to 3 years ago, they're higher. But on a long-term basis, they're at parity. And so the other question you asked me, let's see, you asked about interest rates, and there was
CMBS lending. Where do you think they're going?
There is a enormous amount of debt capital available for hotels. Yes, it's more expensive today than it was 3 years ago, but there's a tremendous amount, and CMBS is very active in the lodging space. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
I don't either, and I think
it's good economics.
Yeah, and if you look at it, the hotel segment within their securitized loan is only a small portion of it. Okay, and they serve a purpose, especially on the larger transactions. You've got contractions with some of the banks. They don't want to put out $100 million loan. They don't want to necessarily, be working with one of their competitors to make the loan come through and do a syndication on it. So CMBS is there, and I think it's a good thing for all of us.
There's lots of debt beyond CMBS as well. So it's CMBS. If you've ever done it and it goes south, it's an experience that you probably don't want to go through again. So
yeah, that's a fact. But we've got some of our community banks and credit unions that are lending on hospitality, not necessarily doing construction loans right now. But there is capital available. You've got private capital as well that's out there that you can, our friends over at Peachtree have been doing a great job.
I was just about to mention them. They're a real interesting group, and kudos to Greg and his teammates.
I've known Greg.
They have capital available for every piece of the capital stack, if you will.
Yeah.
And now they've branched out into, I think they're financing movies, and which I don't really understand, but in the hotel and the real estate space, they've set up an amazing enterprise because they have capital to invest in all sorts of layers of the stack.
Absolutely. I mean, when I first met Greg, he was doing FF&E financing for GE, as I recall. So, he's one that definitely understands the capital stack, and he's put together an amazing team. Speaking of an amazing team, would you tell the audience about Lark? Because I find that, you've just got great information, and you've got something out there for everybody now. And I think whether it's mergers and acquisitions, or it's a bank trying to figure out how to get through the woods, you've got the right information packages for them.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the commercial. So Lark, Lodging Analytics Research and Consulting, is a sister platform of LW Hospitality Advisors. It's run by our partner, Ryan Melliker, who, if you don't know him, you should get to know him. The guy's a data hound and just really spot on with his predictions. If you look at his, if you do a look back on his predictability, he bats very high averages compared with others who batted very low averages. It's a predictive analytics platform, Lodging Analytics Research and Consulting, LARC, L-A-R-C. One-of-a-kind service offering within the sector. There's a GIS platform on top of it. Craig, you probably should have Ryan on your show one day, and I would be happy to facilitate that.
Would you please?
It's a great product that has really been embraced by the hotel investment community. It's interesting. We formed a partnership with Ryan January of 2020 with the intent to launch June of 2020 at the NYU conference. Nice. And then COVID came around and there was no NYU conference, and we launched. And it originally started as Ryan wrote the business plan to do this, and he contemplated launching on his own with us, with some other folks. He decided to do it with us. We're very grateful because he's done an amazing job. It's been when we started, the institutional investment community, they loved it, but they're like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't have money. We're not going to pay for this. So Ryan was putting together these amazing quarterly reports on the top 25 markets, which now is top 65 markets. On the first day of the quarter, it was valuable. On the 90th day of the quarter, it was worthless, right? So we just started giving it away. And as we came out of COVID, then, lots of folks were like, well, where's the update? Well, now you got to pay for it. It actually worked. Anyway, so here we are today, and, Lark has been embraced by private investors, lots of public entities. We do a lot of custom work for many of the public platforms. It's a one-of-a-kind offering, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
I love it, and I just think it's something that was definitely timely going back to the financial meltdowns, and I can understand everybody going, hey, wait a minute, and I like the way you got them on board. But I think information's king, and it's changing, at light speed, and the way we gather information and the systems that we use are all changing. I mean, I hate to keep going back to revenue management and say, well, look at how they started out with spreadsheets, okay? But it is a good example, and we are continuing to change, my friend. We are just about out of time. Daniel, how can people get a hold of you?
Daniel.lesser@LWHadvisors, advisors.com, or just Google me. You'll find me.
There we go. Okay, my friend, I'm going to put you in the green room. Wait back there for me, and I will see you in just a minute.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Great show. That's number 23 out of season 10. We got one more, and then we've got a very special live broadcast that we're going to be doing as well. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Daniel. You always make us smarter and bring us such great insights. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you, our audience. So please subscribe, ring the bell, follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. We've got some great shows for you, and we're going to be back soon with another one. So thank you very much. Remember to be kind, share your knowledge, go be amazing.